Book of Genesis chapter 12, I'll read verse 1. Now the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. Or permit me to say, to a land that I will expose to you. To a land I will show you, or I will expose to you. Genesis chapter 30. You know, for the first time, I actually noticed that he said, get out, get out. Get out. He wasn't suggesting. He said, get out. There's somewhere I want to show you. Genesis 30. I'll read from 25. Genesis 30, I'll read from 25. And it came to pass, verse 25, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I may go to buy my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done for you. And Laban said to him, please stay, if I had found favor in your eyes. For I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. Then he said, name me your wages, and I'll give it. Now this is Laban who said this. So Jacob said to him, you know how I have served you, and how your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming. And now, when shall I also provide for my own house? So he said, what shall I give you? And Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. If you do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. And these shall be my wages. Verse 33. So my righteousness will answer for me in time to come, when the subject of my wages come before you. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the lambs will be considered stolen if it is with me. And Laban said, oh, that it were according to your word. In other words, he said, I agree totally. But look at verse 35. So he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, everyone that had some white in it, mark that, everyone that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. He had agreed that Jacob was going to take the ones that were spotted and speckled. But that same day, all the ones that were spotted and speckled, he gave them to his son. In fact, in some translations, they went on a 3-day journey to distance those ones from the rest of. I hope you understand that. Verse 37. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white strips in them, and exposed. Somebody say exposed. And exposed the white which was in the rods. And the rods which he had peeled, he set before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs, where the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive when they came to drink. Verse 39. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. If the faculty of law in Ife was about the best faculty of law in the country. Any Ife people here? Anybody who went to Ife here? Great Ife. Now, it took me 3 years to get into Ife. Not because I didn't pass JAMB, or not because I didn't do well in my O-levels. As a matter of fact, I did exceptionally well in my O-levels and even in JAMB. But to get into Ife, you needed to score at least 4. I'm from the old Bender State. You needed to score at least 289. The cutoff mark for law in Ife was 289. And so for 2 years, I kept on trying. As a matter of fact, I actually went to do my A-levels, and I eventually still did JAMB. By God's grace, I scored 307 to get into Ife. Now, listen to me. At that point, I was trying. Some of my friends and relations were saying, why must it be Ife? Why do you have to go to Ife? Why not University of Benin? Why not Edo State University? Why not that? Why not that? But I really wanted to go to Ife because I wanted an atmosphere that would challenge me, an atmosphere that would stretch me. And I'd heard so much about the sophistication and about the great school that Ife was. And indeed, when I came into Ife, I was amazed at what I saw in Ife. In fact, half of the story was not told me. One of the things that I immediately noticed about Ife was that it was a serious Ajebota school. Somebody say Ajebota school. I mean, most of the governors, especially in the southwest, most of the ministers, their children were there. A lot of rich people, a lot of influential people's children were in Ife. And you know, the amazing thing in Ife was not only a school that did well in academics, they were very fashionable. You know, Yorubas, please pardon me, Yorubas are very, very vain. Somebody say hallelujah. If anything hit London, in that same weekend, Ife people are wearing it. Are you listening to what I'm saying? The rich man's children, some drove cars, but in the 80s, it was more fashionable to drive bikes. Harley Davidson bikes, Triumph bikes, Kawasaki bikes. Those were the things that the students were riding. So most of those bikes actually were far more expensive than cars. They wore things that you saw only in the magazines. It was an incredible school. But you see, I also noticed that there were also another set of people in Ife. They also came from rich homes. But I noticed that these ones looked plain. These ones didn't wear the kind of clothes these other ones wore. They didn't wear the kind of shoes. Some of them wore adire. But you could tell that these ones were from rich homes. And so I was wondering, how come these ones went to some of the schools that these ones went to, they went to those same schools, but these ones didn't look like their other ones. And yet they also came from influential homes. But I noticed a certain phenomenon in Ife in the 4 years that I was there. And I'll share a little bit of that with you. You know, in my class, all kinds of people were in my class. There was this girl that came to join us in year 2. You know, I noticed that most of the time she wanted to come and sit with me during class. And when class was done, she would ask me for my notebook. Okay, I'll give her my notebook. And I'm wondering, but I noticed she was writing. Why am I? So I'll give her my notebook. You know, that kept on going on. After a point, she was beginning to irritate me. You know, and not that she wasn't pretty. She was pretty, but she was pretty in a village kind of way, if you know what I mean. She looked very plain, and my eyes were elsewhere. You know, so I really didn't care for her. So she kept on borrowing my notebook. But sometime during that process, there was a strike, and we went home for 3 months. When we came back after 3 months, when I saw this girl that used to borrow my notebook, first, she had a car. Second, she was looking hot. Her hair, her clothes, her shoes. A transformation had taken place with this girl. And I was wondering what's going on. So I asked people, I said, isn't the same girl? They said, yeah, it's the same girl. Who is she? And I heard at that point that her father was chairman of UAC. In fact, if I call the father's name, most of you would know him. He had been chairman of several multinational companies. At this point, I wanted to give her my notebook. But she wasn't willing to take my notebook anymore. Hallelujah. My brothers and my sisters, what had happened to this girl? She had become exposed. She had become exposed. I've come to tell you this morning, get exposed. Get exposed. Get exposed. This girl had the same capacity that the other girls had because her father was rich. But you know something?